Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome to Breakfast with the Brookses. For those of you guys who are just tuning in, my name is Glenn P. Brooks Jr. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, and sitting here next to me is the lovely light-skinned
Sheri Brooks Jr. It is a pleasure to be with you guys this morning. Hey guys, we want to thank you for joining us on our YouTube channel this morning. If you have not already subscribed, please subscribe to our channel, and also make sure you ring the bell so that you'll get notifications when we go live.
Yes.
And when we post videos on the channel.
Yes.
Once again, we want to say thank you for joining us on our channel and helping us to grow our subscribers. We've close to...
Get it out. Sheri gets stuck, and it's a thing.
It's a
and
thing.
I'm going to introduce our guest. I'm trying to get her along so y'all can figure out what we got.
I'm back now.
Go ahead. She's back now.
We're fastly approaching 350 members, and we appreciate you guys as we're growing our group. We started with a very low number, and we've grown over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
And we appreciate
Yeah.
all of you for joining our channel. So I just want to say thank you again for
Absolutely.
joining our channel.
Absolutely. If you're on Instagram, do me a favor, go to the link in the bio and make sure that you guys subscribe. We've got some guests here today. Let's give it up for Chris and Angie Adams. They are, it's funny how we're going to characterize their relationship in a second, but essentially they're clients of ours. That's how we kind of came to know each other. But more importantly, you guys have become friends.
Yes.
Like literally friends. This is more than a client-coach relationship. And it was you guys that introduced to the MAPS community the book Love and Respect. And so we've been talking to the YouTube audience, to the Instagram audience on Breakfast with the Brookses for the last few weeks, Chris, on this whole subject. And I'm going to promise you, it's been lively. Now, what you guys don't know is Chris and Angie facilitate the MAPS couples room, particularly during this season where we're doing this particular book, Love and Respect. And so we kind of have been stealing their content and sharing it with you guys here on YouTube. But I just want to say before we get fully into this, a couple of people are tuning in. Good morning, Candace. Good to see you, Teresa. Good to see you, Damon and Marsha. Everybody is saying, hey, good morning to Chris and Angie. They're super excited. That's part of our MAPS community. YouTube, if you are a part of our MAPS Relationship Academy, do me a favor, put MAPS Rocks in the chat, right? MAPS Rocks in the chat. If you are not a part of our MAPS Relationship Academy, say, just put family in the chat because you're part of our extended family. And so we want you to do that. But babe, I'm excited about these guys.
Yes.
When we met you guys almost 2 years ago,
It was bad.
It was bad. It was bad. So as we get started, I know we normally go through all of this stuff about how to join our academy and all that kind of stuff. If we can, Linwood, Danae, Dana, somebody who is in the MAPS Relationship Academy, do me a favor really quickly. Put the crcoach.com in the chat.
Or GlennPBrooksJr.com.
I forget, we're moving over to that. So Sheri is nudging me under the table saying, not that one. We want to send them over. GlennPBrooksJr.com, the crcoach.com for now. But eventually we're going to be going all over to GlennPBrooksJr.com. But that's how you can find out more information about who we are, what we do, why we do it, and who we do it for. But babe, I'm excited. I want to talk to you a little bit about Chris and Angie's journey. Chris, I'll let you go first. Normally we do ladies first, but there's a reason why I want Chris. You were the guy in the relationship when you guys met that it was just really, really a bear living with you. I mean, that's probably I'm probably being very mild.
Very mild.
But talk to us a little bit about, introduce yourself and talk to us a little bit about, like, you know, when you guys got married, what was your mindset? Because we've been talking about love and respect. We've been talking about, and today we're going to talk about how to get off the crazy cycle. So you guys have been on the crazy cycle for a minute. But you got introduced to this book a number of years ago, tried to read it, tried to apply it, not quite got through it. But now that we're going through it as a community, it's really helping you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of how you and Angie maybe have met, the history of y'all's marriage real quick. And then Angie, I'm going to get you to pick up and introduce yourself as well.
All right. I guess to keep it very short, we both grew up in like broken homes. We never came or had any type of structure of what a relationship's supposed to look like. So we met 10 years ago through Facebook, actually. She kept poking me.
Wow.
One thing led to another.
Wow.
So we met through Facebook, and we developed a relationship quickly, and we were together for about 5 years as boyfriend and girlfriend. And even during that time, like, we were both broken people, and so nothing was coming together. So we kind of had that mindset of, you know what? We just started to come to Christ, and we're like, well, we need to get married. If we get married, that fixes things. We do it right.
Has anybody ever heard get married and that fixes things?
Yes.
Like, no, that I get it. I get it.
So we got married. And even I tell people, like, we didn't get married out of the pretense of like, oh, I'm so in love. Like, no, we got married like, this is what we're supposed to do. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So we got married, and it didn't fix anything. As a matter of fact, it made everything worse. Because during this whole time, like, I was struggling with post-traumatic stress. I didn't know that at the time. And literally our marriage just fell apart to where one night I was just like, you know what? I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't love you. I want nothing to do with you. And right then and there, I just like shut off.
Right.
And that went on for 4 months, 5 months. Long time. But she came to me and was like, look, I have, it's funny because before I broke it off, I was always the one like pushing her towards church or pushing her towards, but the moment I broke it off, she started going to church. She started like doing, and like she started changing drastically.
Right.
So she came to me one day and was like, look, I made a promise. We're gonna try to work through this. So she was the firm one.
Right.
So during this time, I was having an affair, and so I cut it off with that girl, and I was like, okay, let's give this a whirl. So I came back to her, and I was fully invested in her for about 2 weeks. Yeah. I'd say about 2 weeks, and then my light switch went off again.
Right.
And from that point, over the next 2 years, saying I was a bear to live with was an understatement. Like, I was the worst of the worst.
Right.
I basically told her, like, hey, I promised you I would never leave you again. I'm going to hold true to that promise.
Right.
But
by physically being here only.
Yeah,
right,
by
right.
physically being here only. I am not emotionally here. And I used to always tell her, like, if, like, I think there was even a couple times where I told her, like, if you see a guy you want to go on a date with, go.
Right.
Like, you go be happy. You do you. Like, we're going to be together in the household physically, but I basically don't like you, and I want nothing to do with you in any way, shape, or form, emotionally, relationship.
Wow.
And that's how it was for 2 years.
Yeah.
And now, over the course of this 2 years, she was getting much more grounded in God, and like over the course of that 2 years, every day, like, she would change for the better, and she was constantly giving me grace every day.
Right.
Like, I would watch her go to bed crying her eyes out on like a Friday night, and I wouldn't care.
Right.
But then Saturday morning, she would wake up and treat me like I didn't treat her Friday night.
Right.
And she repeated this.
Got it. Over and over and over
Every
again.
day for 2 years.
Guys, let me just real quick, for those of you all who are just jumping in, we're talking to Chris and Angie Adams. Y'all say hey to Chris, hey to Angie. IG, appreciate you guys for coming along the ride. I cannot see your comments from this distance. I see the words there.
So hopefully, there, hello,
we appreciate y'all. I will say to you, Instagram, do me a huge favor and tap the arrow button. Share this out to as many people as possible. Sheri and I, years ago, made a commitment to each other that as we grew in our relationship, we would help as many people as possible. Yes. And our goal, even in our MAPS community, is to provide what right looks like. Not that we're not ever wrong, but what does it look like to show up and be highly functional and go through the window and do the work. And the work that you guys are doing has been exponential. We're going to talk to Angie in a minute, but I want you guys to understand that when they came together, they were in a horrible, horrible place. And so if you're in a relationship, if you're in a marriage and you're trying to figure out, like, Like, do I go? Do I stay? What do I do? How do I do this? We really want to encourage you to come maybe rock with us in the MAPS Relationship Academy. But certainly take this stuff that we're talking about to heart and apply it, because I promise you it can change the game. So Angie, you and Chris met. Y'all were going through these changes. It was not fun, but you had made a commitment to stay regardless as to how he was acting. Talk to me a little bit about like sort of the premise of that, and maybe if you can take us back to your mindset. What was going through your mind to try and work through that?
I know a lot of the ladies have been like, how do you hang in there? Like, where do you get that from? I can only say God, because it was not me. Like, I wanted to, like, let's just hit the road. Like, this is done. Like, I'm going to see a lawyer. Like, we're finished here. But it was God every day giving me the grace to hang in there every day.
Yeah.
So it was 0% my power, all of his power. I definitely was tired, was oversharing with people. I just wanted someone to help and to hear me.
Yeah.
So I was reaching out, but I didn't have the community that we have to grow. I just had people to listen, and then what they would do is give me terrible advice or criticize him or say like, oh girl, like I don't know how you do it, and try to build me up but then cut him down.
Right.
So
Right.
I wasn't surrounded by the right environment. And then hung in there, and then my last ditch effort was I did convince him to try out a new church. Like, I was going to leave the church I was at by myself.
Yep.
I said, you pick the place, we'll go. And he said, okay. So we found one, and then they advertised a marriage weekend. And it was the one you guys did. So I said...
This is how we met.
Yeah. And so I said, will you go? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And I was like, okay, well, at least he's going to go. Like, let's just try it out.
Yeah.
And went, and like, we were broken down, and then we met you guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, please help me, please.
No.
I'd
Go
like
ahead,
to
Chris.
add to that, prior to coming to this community, like, we had been through several marriage counselors, and none of them worked. And we had been through several different pastors, and even the pastors had no idea what to do with us. They were just passing us off to whoever, like, so they're like, oh, go see these people,
Right.
or go, you know.
Or here's a book, and that's how love and respect.
So, like, when we came and we met y'all were literally, like, probably the first people that didn't, like, pass us off to, like, someone else.
Right.
Like, y'all were like, all right, well, let's see what we can do.
Right,
You know?
right. Guys, let me just say this, and Sheri, you can chime in. The book, Love and Respect. So this book has revolutionized Chris and Angie's life and their perspective. And we invited them because of the work that they had been doing, not only since we've met them. It was the transformation that we saw when we found out that they had read this book. We said, you know what, let's read it as a community, but let's let y'all facilitate it, because you guys are on the other side of going through. Now you're moving. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes you get in that dark place and you can't see nothing.
Right.
And then you get to a place where not only can you see, but you actually know what to do. And so it's just about getting busy about doing that work. And I think that one of the things that just really kind of struck me, and Sheri, you can speak to this, is that there was a willingness for them to put hand to plow and do the work.
Right. And
regardless as to how they felt about it.
Right. And I think that people fail to realize that you may want change, but if you're not willing to do the work, the want to alone or the desire is not enough.
Right.
And, we see it all the time. People say they want their relationship to work. They want to have a better relationship, but they don't want to do the actual work. And that work is hard.
Yeah.
It's going through the misunderstandings. It's going through the difficulties and working through that stuff that helps you to get to the other side. And you guys were willing to do that work. You guys, there was it's kind of like when people first come to Christ, they have this hunger, and you can tell the people that are really hungry, they really want it. You guys had that hunger about your relationship. You guys were like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We want to
tried everything.
We've tried everything else. We want to try something different. And you guys were willing. Y'all literally were like sponges. Whatever we said, you guys took it.
Yeah, they just
ran
did it.
with it.
They did it.
You guys were bold enough to be like, hey, well, we'll try it.
We'll try it.
Well,
What can it hurt?
I think it was the first time that we were both ready at the same time, because
Right.
there were times
That's
that
important.
he was like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, forget it, I'm done. And then he'd be like, oh, well, if you're done, I'm done. I'm like, no, I want to do it now. And So
Right.
it was the first time that we were at the same place at the same time.
I want to talk about that, and that's a great segue into this point. So we've been talking the last couple of weeks, guys, and I want y'all to chime in. If there's any questions that you have on Instagram, we'll go back and we'll ask them. Linwood, I think I see you, that you're in the community. Do me a favor and engage them on Instagram, certainly with the information. It looks like I may be able to see Ebony, I think it might be. I'm struggling. But I can see that. But do me a favor, engage those people for me, Linwood, on Instagram, and help them kind of get connected. But guys, let me say this really quickly. Sheri, you and I have met more and more couples who come to us where one is on the page and the other is not. One is ready to do the work and the other is not. And oftentimes in this book, Love and Respect kind of really outlines the notion. And if you guys have been with us for any length of time, maybe you're new, let me give you a quick background. A couple of months ago, we started a series just dealing with the sticky factor in relationships. And what we learned is that the sticky factor, according to Malcolm Gladwell, in a business sense, is that thing that causes people to stay consistent with the products and services that they shop with. So if you're an Apple person, generally people who are Apple people don't have PCs, they don't have Android devices, they're all in for Apple. And the other is true for your Android or your it's a whole culture, right? If you are a Starbucks person, you generally aren't going to go to Dunkin' Donuts, right? I'm just a coffee person. So for me, as long as it's good, it really don't matter on that front. However, what we realized is that there's a sticky factor in relationships. What causes people, A, to stick and B, to stay stuck?
Right.
Not only to stick, stay stuck, but if they get unstuck, how to get restuck. Right? What is that thing? And what we have found, Sheri and I both found that communication is the sticky factor in relationship.
Right.
And so that led us on a quest, and then we began talking about communication. How does that look? And when we're talking about a relationship, what we do know, and I'm not going to preach, but I will tell you a principle. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33, it talks about how the husband is supposed to love his wife and the wife is supposed to respect her husband. And all too often, we have people who show up and don't know how to love.
Right. And don't know how to respect. Right.
Go ahead.
Right. And I think that our culture doesn't teach us that. Oftentimes people get in a marriage and they think that love is enough, but they don't know how to love.
Right.
You know, for men, they're not taught. I mean, men are not necessarily taught how to love a woman, how to properly care for a woman. And so that's something they have to learn. And women, oftentimes, especially if we've been independent, if we, grew up without a father in the home or a strong father figure, we don't really know how to respect men, if we're honest.
Right.
And then you get married and there's this man in your life that's supposed to be in this position and you don't know how to respect him. And as much as you say, well, I'm not doing this, that, and the other, but there's still a level of disrespect that you're flowing in that you're not even aware of.
Correct.
Because you never learned how to properly respect the authority, the role of the man, of the husband in your life. I wanted to backtrack one thing real quick. You mentioned when, oftentimes couples come to us and they're not both on the same page.
Right. And we got questions already about that. Yep, I want to talk about that.
One thing I want to talk about, and Angie and Chris talked about this, even when Chris wasn't on the page, during that season, Angie kept working on herself and Angie was still growing.
Yep.
That made it possible for Chris to even come to the point that he was willing. It was because she basically wore him down.
Yeah.
Chris, speak to that, how because she was
that
loving you.
That wasn't my goal.
Right. It wasn't your goal, but you were just focused on you and doing what you knew you had to do to make sure you were right with God. But in that, it had an effect on Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I tell people, like, physically, like on the exterior, I was still the stone cold. No one wants to be, like, I still don't like you.
Right.
But, like, Glenn always says, like, growth is attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was joking around with a coworker, Mark, the other day, and I was telling him, like, when I was going through this bad time, I used to joke around, like, whoever the next guy that gets her, like, is going to be the luckiest guy in the world. Like, he better send me thank you cards because she worked out all the kinks on me.
Yeah.
You know? And so, like, I started, like, even though, like, exteriorly I was hard, on the inside, like, I couldn't deny her growth. Mm-hmm. I couldn't deny that, like, there was something about it that part of me was mad that I myself wasn't doing it. And it kind of led me to a place where I realized, like, I'm never going to have, like, the changes that she's making, I'm not going to have in any other girl. So it got to a point where it's put up or if I don't make the changes in myself to try to keep her. Like, no other girl's going to bring to the table what she's bringing, because, you know, in a relationship, you always pick out the negative things.
Right.
So during this time that she was changing, I was noticing less and less of those negative things.
Right.
And she wasn't perfect. Like, she would make a mistake, but I would notice, like, the old Angie, when she would make a mistake, she would come and say, well, I'm sorry I did this. But she would always use the words, because you. But as she was changing, I noticed she would make a mistake and she would come back and she would just, I'm sorry I made this mistake. I shouldn't have said that. Will you forgive me? But she would never add on the because you.
Wow.
You know, so during this time, even the things that I noticed were negative were changing, because she wouldn't turn the ball on, well, because you did. No, she would just come up and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Will you forgive me? And that was it. And I was waiting. I'm like,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't come.
Yeah.
Right.
And so like I said, it literally led me to a point where I was like, put up or shut. Like,
Right.
if I don't make changes, I lose her. I'm done.
Right.
Go ahead. Absolutely, Ange. Go ahead.
So I know there's a couple ladies that have been like, well, how do you keep going when he's being stone cold on the outside? Like, I say just keep doing it, because it's been years for me to find out that was going on in his head. He never shared that with me. So you have no idea what's going on inside the other person. So just keep doing your part, and that's all you can control anyway, because something's happening in them, even if you can't see it, they don't share it, anything.
Yeah.
So change is right around the corner.
Right, and that's the thing that we always say, you know, when you change, people tend to change their response to you, but it may not be immediate. You may not see it. Like you said, if if I'm being nice to you and you're being mean, there's a seed being planted. At some point, that's going somewhere. It's in his subconscious. He's going to remember that, unless he's a straight psychopath, at some point, a switch is going to go off.
And
it's we have to be patient. You know, when you've made that covenant, when you've made that commitment, it's a commitment, it's a covenant. And so for better, for worse means for better or for worse.
Well, and even for us, like the better for worse, like I don't even know that it came from like a good place. We're both very stubborn. And so it may have even started from like, well, our parents are both divorced. Like, we're not failing at this. And we're in our early 30s. We're not going to be divorced in our early 30s. We're going to figure it out because we don't want to be failures. So even if that was the first step, that wasn't...
It worked.
It worked.
It worked for you. Guys, let me just say this again. For those of you guys who may be just jumping in, we're talking to Chris and Angie Adams. There's a whole backstory on the fact that she even has his last name, because for the first, 5 years of y'all's marriage, maybe, she would not take his name. And there's a whole piece that... And so I just want y'all to understand that what you see here is absolutely phenomenal.
Yes.
I want to go to some things, particularly about love and respect from a doing standpoint. So up until now, we've been talking about this crazy cycle. The crazy cycle for most of you guys, and you'll know this when you hear it. It's I say one thing, she says another. I have an idea, she is not feeling it. She says something, I say the exact opposite, and there's never agreement. If the sky is blue, she's going to call it white. I guarantee you. And she's going to have a whole argument behind it. And that's the crazy cycle in a nutshell. What we learned is men see in blue, and women, according to the book, sees pink. We also hear blue, and they hear pink. What that simply means, guys, is that we communicate differently. Right. And I think that as coaches, one of the things that we're trying to get people to really understand is that if I know that you and I communicate differently, what would it look like for me to be able to borrow your glasses and learn to see the way you do? Right. I won't naturally see that way. It's never going to come natural to me. But if I can borrow... So for instance, real quick, if I could swap glasses with Sheri, it gives me an opportunity, right, to say, whoa, I now understand. Does that make sense? If I go to put on Sheri's glasses, it's like, this ain't right. What? Now I understand why she says what she says, the way she says it. There's a sensitivity to that, guys, because I'm beginning to see with her perspective. Right. So the crazy cycle is when you don't embrace that. Right. The crazy cycle is when you say, yeah, I know I'm different, and I know she's different. but she needs to be more like me.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what
You,
we
you,
did.
you get what I'm saying?
Forced you to be me.
Right. You just got to be me. How do you get off of the crazy cycle is the $1 million question, because I've got people in the chat that are literally, good morning, Mike. It's good to see you guys. Karen, Dana, Candace, Bobby, all you guys, Karen, Linwood, thanks so much for chiming in on the chat. We're not ignoring you guys, but I really want to kind of talk through some of these different issues and get this content out. We may have to, I don't know if y'all got the time. We may have to pick this, we may have to continue recording after this show, and then maybe run it back as a part 2, because there's a lot of information here. Right. Would y'all like that if y'all could? Because we don't have the time to go live the entire time, but I'd like to maybe after we're finished this show, maybe record the conversation
so we can
and then
continue.
air it for you guys later. If that's cool with you, put a thumbs up in the chat just to let us know. But Chris, the question becomes, how do you get off the crazy cycle? Because it was relentless for y'all.
Well, for me personally, I realized that for the first 8 years of my relationship, I was living I feel like most problems in relationships start with selfishness. Like you have money, you have financial problem, whatever the problem is, it really boils down to like a selfishness. And so like I realized that moving forward, I'm going to have to approach everything with her from a selflessness versus a selfishness perspective. Because like my whole life I had lived, I would agree with her or meet her in the middle as long as I still got some type of benefit from it, as long as I still got what I wanted out of it.
Yeah.
So like moving forward, I realized I have to approach her like I have to literally put her in front of me, and then hope that she's continuing to change, and she would in turn do it for me.
Gotcha.
But even knowing even if she didn't do it in return for me, I was doing it because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Gotcha.
So I can at least go to bed, knowing that I did the best that I could that day.
Right.
And that was my approach.
Yeah. Angie, you want to speak to that a little bit? When it comes to getting off...
that was exactly what I was going to say. And I don't think that the selfishness that we had came from like a malicious place. Like we grew up, he had to just take care of himself, and I was super independent and didn't have much structure, so I just did whatever I wanted and got whatever I wanted. So then when someone said no, I didn't like no, because I wanted what I wanted, because I always got what I wanted.
Right.
So we were used to being two selfish people, and the thought of like putting someone else first was really foreign. And I didn't grow up going to church, so the concept of like God, Jesus, the Bible, all of that stuff like didn't make any sense to me. So I think, which is still, I don't know about him, but for me it's still a struggle, because I've been selfish for so much of my life. Switch and be selfless is a struggle every day.
I know it. I get it.
So I think that mindset changed.
I get it. Guys, one of the things I want to say this just clearly, some of you guys are experiencing some technical challenges with us being clear, the signal. We've had torrential storms. I don't know what part of the country you guys are in, but we've had tornado watches in our area all night last night. We got in this morning. The Wi-Fi was blown off, so we're actually broadcasting on a backup type system. So I apologize if the buffering is just driving you bananas a little bit. So if you can work with us, that would be good. I appreciate you guys. But if you have any questions, do me a favor, pop them in the chat and I'll try to go to them. And and if I don't answer them on this show, we're going to continue to record, and hopefully we can get a better signal connection, because we won't be on Wi-Fi. But I want to be able to answer your questions so that maybe next week when you tune in, we're going to post that recording like it's live, and we'll interact with it, but it will be an ongoing conversation from today. So Chris, one of the things that I understand, and Sheri and I had to go through this in our previous marriages. See, we refuse to get off of the crazy cycle. Here's what happens when you refuse to get off the crazy cycle. It will end badly.
Right.
I don't care how you slice that. I don't care. It's not a matter of if, it's when. It's going to end, and it's going to end badly. The crazy cycle is not designed to give you.
Right.
I need y'all to understand that. When you have two people who are growing a relationship together and they're moving, it's not God didn't design us to go through pounding after pounding hardship after hardship over and over again where our emotions are concerned. And so as a result of that, somebody's going to quit.
Right. And if you think about the crazy cycle, if you've ever seen a dog just running around in the yard and they just keep running around, they're digging a trench. They're digging in the dirt. And so they're going lower and lower and lower. It keeps going around because you keep digging down. And that's what you do in your relationship when you stay on this crazy cycle, is you keep digging this circle and you're going down, you're going deeper
Correct.
into it. And whatever the issue is becomes further steeped, and that becomes this weight that just holds you there because you keep going around in this circle. And then you get to the point where you can't you can't get out.
Yeah.
You can't get out of because you've dug this hole that's so deep.
And you literally are in a place where you cannot climb out of. So let me break this down. So when we talk about love and respect, so Sheri, when I am feeling respected, I generally will respond in love.
Right.
When she is feeling loved, she generally will respond with respect. We learn through the book that fundamentally, if you think about food and water, right? Respect for men is like food, is like water is to food, right? You need food, but you really need water. Does that make sense, guys? And we got some lighting issues that's going to happen here. Hold on.